Good day, everyone. We are Group 2. I am Joshua Emmanuel Vergara.
I am Rain Alexene C. MARQUINA.
I am Lorraine ng Pantilanan.
And I am Marnelle Aya.
So, for our final summative assessment, we were tasked to assess submarine biomes in the Philippines. We decided to do research on the beautiful Tubataha Reef, one of the Philippines' most beautiful and well-known marine parks. Tubataha Reefs National Park lies in the unique position in the center of the Sulu Sea. The term Tubataha is derived from two Samal words which mean a long reef exposed at low tide. Tubataha Reef is comprised of two atolls, north and south. Between the two, the north atoll is larger, 16 kilometers long and 5 kilometers wide, while the south atoll is 5 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide. Each atoll has an islet that protrudes on the water surface. These atolls are separated by the 8-kilometer wide deep channel. The third area is a Jesse BC Reef, a small area. Being at the Pacific Ring of Fire, it is said that the Tubataha Reef was born from the eruption of undersea volcanoes millions of years ago. The property is home to a great diverse marine life. Whales, dolphins, sharks, turtles, and Napoleon wrasse are amongst the key species found here. The reef ecosystem supports over 300 species of coral and almost 700 species of fish. The reserve also protects one of the few remaining colonies of breeding seabirds in the region. The marine and bird sanctuary consists of two huge atolls named North and South Atoll and a smaller Jesse BC Reef. It is located 150 kilometers southeast of Puerto Princesa, the capital of Palawan. The uninhabited islands and reefs are part of the island municipality of Cagayancillo, located roughly 130 kilometers to the northeast of the reef. Tubataha was once nominated as the new seven wonders of the natural world. Tubataha Reef is often considered to be the best dive spot in the Philippines, reachable only by scuba diving, live board boats leaving from the province of Palawan. Tubataha dive trips are often booked years in advance. Distance from the mainland is good for conservation. Tubataha is reachable only by boat, a journey which takes up to 10 to 12 hours and is only attempted from mid-March to mid-June. This means the reef receives less pressure from fishermen than the coral reefs located closer to population waters. In an attempt to protect the marine biome, it was named as a National Marine Park in 1988 and was indicted as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1993. So the primary objective of this presentation is to discuss the physical-chemical components of Tubataha Reef. This will give us a clear view of why biodiversity thrives in the area. We would also be dissecting the geography and discovering the marine habitats, flora, and fauna. A clear emphasis on endemic flora and fauna will be the primary focus. We will also learn the importance of the biomes and discuss the specific disruptions and their effects on the marine biome and the current presented solutions to these problems.
All the data here are from the latest water quality monitoring of the Tugataha Management Office last June 2020. 20 sampling stations were established for monitoring. These stations were chosen based on their location and proximity to North Atoll, South Atoll, and to the Chesapeake Sea. A total of 100 water samples were collected from the 20 water quality monitoring stations. These samples were analyzed in the PCB Environmental Laboratory for 7 parameters, which are nitrates, phosphate, total coliform, fecal coliform, color, total suspended solids, and oil and grease, while the parameter for pH, temperature, and dissolved oxygen were measured on site. Now for the physical-chemical components of the Tubatahari. For the pH, they used the method plus electrode method, and the pH value they gathered ranges from 6 to 9. These pH values are good for the coral reefs to thrive and conducive for the respiration and other metabolic processes of fish, corals, and other aquatic organisms. For the temperature, their method of analysis is the multi-probe meter, and the temperature in all stations ranges from 30.07 degrees Celsius to 31.14 degrees Celsius, with a mean value of 30.41 degrees Celsius. These values were slightly higher than the maximum guideline set for Class A at 30 degrees Celsius. Variation of temperature is one of the important factors that influence the distribution and abundance of marine flora and fauna. For the total suspended solid, these are the particles that remain suspended in water, thereby causing turbidity or increase the color of the water. They utilize a gravimetric dried at 100 G to 105 degrees Celsius. The total suspended solid ranges from less than 1 milligram per liter to 12 milligram per liter, with a mean value of 4.825 milligram per liter. It is below the water quality guideline for glass and plate per DENR Administrative Order number 20608, which is 25 milligram per liter. The color measures the clarity of the water, which is affected by the presence of dissolved organic matter, metallic salts, and suspended solids. Their method of analysis is by using the visual comparison method. The measured color of seawater surrounding the Bataha National Park ranged from less than 5 to 15 platinum cobalt hue. All water quality monitoring stations in 2020 were below the Class SA guideline of 5 platinum cobalt hue. Moving on, for the dissolved oxygen, they use a membrane electrode method. In the dissolved oxygen range from 5.40 mg per liter to 8.87 mg per liter, with a mean value of 7.04 mg per liter. It is important to note that the higher the value of the dissolved oxygen, the better for the marine organism. Therefore, dissolved oxygen values higher than the Class SA guideline of 6 mg per liter are considered to be all within the prescribed water quality guidelines. Nitrates indicate the presence of nutrients in the water bodies. High concentration can cause severe illness to animals. They utilize a colorimetric using Hatch nitrate powder pillows to measure the nitrate levels. The nitrate ranges from 0.4 mg liter to 0.69 mg per liter, with a mean value of 0.53 mg per liter. It is concluded that the nitrate levels from all water quality monitoring stations were below the water quality guidelines, as you can observe in the figure below. Now for the phosphate. They use the same method as nitrate, which is colorimetric, using Hatch phosphate powder pillows. The range of phosphate concentration is 0.12 mg per liter to 0.75 mg per liter, with a mean value of 0.34 mg per liter. It was noted that the levels of phosphates measured from all stations exceeded the water quality guideline, and it may lead to the growth of algae and other microorganisms. Based on its name, oil and grease are the fats, oils, waxes, and other related constituents found in water that is recovered in the solvent. Their method of analysis is through gravimetric method, petroleum ether extraction. Concentrations of oil and grease ranges from less than 1 mg per liter to 8.8 mg per liter, with a mean value of 2.36 mg per liter. This aims to ascertain the possible effects of the increased number of boats entering the park during the dive season on the levels of oil and grease. In June 2020, when the park was closed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, oil and grease were at low concentration, as you can see in the figure below. For the total dissolved solids, it measures the water's content of various dissolved materials. They utilize a multi-parameter, and the total dissolved solid measured ranges from 28,310 mg per liter to 30,990 mg per liter, with a mean value of 30,410 mg per liter. On the other hand, salinity is a measurement of the mass of dissolved salts in a given amount of water. The Tubataha Management Office also uses a multi-parameter to measure the salinity, and it ranges from 27.9 parts per thousand to 30.89 parts per thousand, with a mean value of 30.24 parts per thousand. The high level of salinity are due to the high amount of dissolved salts in the ocean. This table summarizes the mean values of the physical, chemical, and microbiological parameters grouped per WQ monitoring stations into Batahari National Park. This is the water quality guidelines for Class SA for DENR Administrative Order number 206 0.08. The main value shows that the nitrate, color, total suspended solid, and pH concentration is within the WQ guideline, while slightly elevated levels were observed for the other parameters such as temperature, dissolved oxygen, and fecal coliform and phosphate. The water quality of Tubataha National Park has been influenced by both anthropogenic and natural factors, while the aesthetic water quality remains excellent, such as the color and total suspended salt. The levels of phosphate and oil and grease were recorded above the Class FA guideline. Most of the water quality parameters improved compared to the previous years. However, it is too early to conclude that the improvement was influenced by tourism closure. Thus, it will be interesting to determine the water quality of Tubatahay next year after a long period of closure from tourism activities.
As for the geographical component of Tubataha, it is located in Cuencillo, Palawan. The Tubataha Marine Park covers about 96,828 hectares. Its elevation is about 2 meters to 100 meters below sea level. While for its climate, it is exposed to southeast monsoon during June to October and the northeast monsoon during November to March. Moreover, its vegetation boasts at least four species of both trees and grass, such as the Terminalia catapa, the Lucena locucephala, and the species of grass such as Melapodium vivaricatum and Portulacata oleracea. The habitat varies by the outer slope and the lagoon. Also, in Jessie Beasley Reef, which is characterized by underwater overhangs, crevices, and ledges. There are only two species of trees of the family Euphorbiaceae recorded in the atoll. Benthic marine vegetation of Tubataha reefs consists about 4 species of seagrasses and at least 43 species of algae. Both seagrasses and algae form extensive beds in shallow areas in both North and South islets. The dominant macroalgae in here are Colerpa orvillana and Turbinaria. In this presented graph above is the status of the vegetation in Bird Islet in Tubataha Reef from 2010 to 2020. Here we can see the continued deterioration of the trees, which is associated with the habitat conversion, construction of a new seawall in a lighthouse last 2019. Until 2009, the beech forest comprising about 125 trees was in optimal condition. But in 2013, the condition of the vegetation began to deteriorate so that by 2014, trees that were in bad condition dominated the vegetative cover of the islet. In the year 2019, at least 12 saplings of the species Anuling Pisonia grandis were planted. But in 2020, only 3 saplings had survived, and in general, the island had become a treeless, barren habitat. As of May 2020, lower vegetation, including grasses, was observed, which was negatively impacted by the drought caused by El Nino. Its use assemblages of corals, fish, marine mammals, and seabirds are invaluable to science as a wildlife refuge and field laboratory, and to the regional economy as a dive site of exceptional quality and beauty. The Stenella longirostris and Eretmochelys imbricata are some of the fauna found in the lush life and Tubataha Marine Reef. The fish fauna is represented by at least 40 families and at least 500 to 700 species of fish. Hawksbill, green turtles, manta rays, stingrays, and at least 6 species of sharks, such as the black tip and white tip, are common in Tubataha, as well as pelagic tunas, mackerel, duck, and others are also found in the area. At least 5 species of dolphins have been sighted as well, and also 2 species of whales have been seen as well. Now, let's move on to the avian species found in Tubataha. The North Reef is a rookery of brown boobies, the red-footed boobies, and the turnsternus species. The South Reef has also a variety of birds, including red-footed boobies, brown boobies, the common noddy, the sooty tern, and the crested tern. Moreover, in the same area, marine turtles such as the hawksbill and green sea turtle are also found. It was also stated that the Christmas frigate bird, rather, or the fregata and juicy can be seen around this reef. Meanwhile, this graph represents the biomass of each trophic group found in Tubataha. The fishes were found or were further classified based on the similarity of their diet specialization, irrespective of their taxonomic affinities. These structures are trophic categories that could imply the availability and abundance of food sources in a site. So in here, we can see that the herbivores and piscivores had the highest biomass relative to other trophic groups. These two groups are mostly large-bodied species. The dominant species like unicorn fish, groupers, and jacks, while most of the herbivores species recorded were from families like Acanthuridae, like from unicorn fish and parrotfish. Meanwhile, piscivores were dominated by species like jacks, trevallies, groupers, snappers, and sweetlips. As for the piscivore species, it is highly valued as commercially targeted fish. Hence, they are usually the first one to disappear from a heavily fished area. So, next one is the presence of corallivorous fishes was also noted as a critical component of a healthy coral reef. Therefore, this group can approximate the reef's health condition. Um, it is mainly represented by the group of angelfishes and butterfly fishes. Meanwhile, the next one is planktivores, which is accounted for at least 12% of the total mean biomass in Tubataha, which are primarily represented by Pomancitridae like damselfishes, fusiliers. This group thrives in areas where roofs are far from the coast. They proliferate in less turbid water since they rely more on their vision and light intensity and feeding than other species in different trophic groups. Lastly is the benthic in vertivore predators, which are mainly represented by holocentridae like soldier fishes, as well as lampridae like grasses, and lethrinidae like emperor fish, which are also essential component of the reef. They have a variety of feeding habits and prey, such as the crustacean and mollusks. Thus, they can also indicate the abundance of invertebrates in coral reefs. Meanwhile, the omnivores, mainly represented by Balistidae or triggerfish, the Acanthuridae like surgeonfish, can feed on the different food types depending on the availability. Hence, they also have an essential role in maintaining the balance between plant and animal growth. Uh, as for the second to the last one is the detrivores, which have an important role in the turnover of detritus for the reuse of nutrients by primary producers such as phytoplanktons. Hence, they prevent the accumulation of decaying matter in the coral reefs. Now, the group has mainly presented or represented by species like Acanthuridae, surgeonfish, scaridae, parrotfish. The presence of this species in each trophic group, which differ in the rates and pathways, they process resources, which keeps the balance of different ecosystem processes, such as herbivory and competition. As for this graph, it shows the monitoring years from 2014 to 2020 of patterns of fish communities in line with their biomass and density. In here, although the temporal trend in these grounding sites exhibited the same pattern as the regular monitoring sites, fish biomass was relatively lower and varied significantly across the five monitoring sites in Bataha. However, over the years, it remained within the best category in terms of fish biomass and density based on the Philippine national standards. Now, the fish community this year, last year, remains to be one of the healthiest in the Philippines. The diversity, abundance, and sizes improved from the previous year. However, commercially reported fishes continue to be abundant in the reefs. So the presence of species of utmost interest like whale sharks and top trophic species like tiger sharks, groupers, and trevally is an indication of ecological balance in the reef ecosystem. Over the years, Tubataha has proven the stringent protection is a vital factor in securing mature fish populations, which is evident in the consistent display of high biomass outputs and the presence of top predators. Furthermore, its isolation and remoteness from anthropogenic disturbances in its size appear to be a crucial factor in structuring the healthy fish community of the park. Here are some of the photos of fauna varieties we can find in the Tubataha Marine Park. Here is the Tridactylus ligas, manta rays, and some of it. Now, as we end on this segment, let us be reminded that the Tubataha faces grave threats due to climate change. This area supports an appreciable assemblage of rare, vulnerable, or endangered species, animals like Chilinus, Undulatus, the Acropora abrohensis, and Acropora oculeus, as well as the Epinephelus lanceolatus. Therefore, we must protect this area and its endangered ecosystems. Let us protect these organisms.
Now, let's talk about why biomes are important. First, biomes are important in the study of ecology. They help researchers to learn not only a specific plant or animal, but also the significant role it plays in its community. Second, they clearly define our planet. A biome is commonly defined as a large category of ecosystem characterized by its distinctive association of plants and animals. The variety of habitats provided by each biome supports the biodiversity of species such as human, plants, and animals. Third, biomes are essential to the continuation of life on Earth. Each one helps to balance other biomes through climate and variation, and each one also provides a unique necessities to both biome and human. Lastly, it is a roadmap of our interaction. Biomes help us on how we live, how we survive. Determines the type of animals and plants that we interact. The materials available for us, for example, the food we can find, grow, and hunt, even the clothing we need to wear. So as discussed earlier, we are focusing about aquatic or marine biomes, specifically the coral reefs. Now let me talk about why coral reefs are essential to us. So coral reefs provide an important ecosystem for life underwater. We all know that in the Philippines, it is prone to tropical cyclones due to its geographical location, and the coral reefs aid as protection for our coastlines from the damaging effects of wave action and tropical storms. Second, these reefs also provide habitats and shelters for many marine organisms such as fishes. They are also the source of nitrogen and other essential nutrients for marine food chains. They assist in carbon and nitrogen fixing. Carbon and nitrogen are considered very important elements. They are used as nutrient for plant and animal growth. The nitrogen must be converted to a useful form. Without the fixed nitrogen, plants and therefore animals could not even exist as we all know. Lastly, is it helps with nutrient cycling. Coral contains photosynthetic algae called zooxanthellae that live inside each coral polyp. These help the coral process nutrients. The synthetic process carried out in corals transform into inorganic carbon like carbon dioxide into organic carbon. The Philippines is considered a biodiversity hotspot, one of the most biologically rich countries, but also the most threatened. Coral reefs are the most endangered species in our planet. 98% of the Philippine reefs are classified as threatened, with 70% at high or very high risk. Here are some of the threats to the Tubataha coral reefs. First is exploitation. Coral reefs face many threats from local sources, including physical damage or destruction from coastal development, as well as destructive fishing practices and additional or touching or removing of corals. Next is marine debris. The volume of debris in our ocean increases every year. Plastic garbage is a threat to marine animals as is it often mistaken for food, which can cause injury or death. In fact, birds' nests in Tobataha are frequently built from plastic food wraps, while abandoned fish lines are made from nylon, have caused death to numerous seabirds. Another threat would be the climate change. The climate on our planet is continuously changing. Climate change is increasing both temperature and acidity to the ocean. Next is coral bleaching. Under stress such as increase of water temperatures and ocean acidification leads to a lighter or completely white appearance termed as bleach. Although it may appear so when a coral bleaches, it is not dead. However, this may increase their proneness to diseases, stunt their growth, and affect their reproduction. Another one will be toxic waste. When sediment and other pollutants enter water, it can end up destroying an entire food chain of aquatic life. Improperly disposed chemicals polluted marine life and kill sea mammals and corals. Lastly would be the cots, also known as the crown of thorns starfish into Bataha. It is a native species that is propagated in deep water and migrate to shallow water as they grow. However, in 2007, the first outbreak of cots was observed in Bataha. These cots, or crown of thorns starfish, are a major cause of coral loss on the Great Barrier Reef. So coral reefs are filled with colorful ocean life, but they are danger in dying off. A devastating decline in coral cover can cause a parallel decline in the biodiversity. Here are some of the effects. Loss of coral biodiversity. Coral reefs provide habitat, feeding, spawning, and nursery grounds for millions of aquatic species. Without them, the marine species or marine life will be endangered and possibly disappear forever, if it would be beyond repair. Next would be CO2 increases. Without the coral reefs, the ocean will not be able to absorb as much carbon dioxide, leaving more CO2 in the atmosphere. Coral reefs act as natural barriers to the shoreline, protecting them from the effects of the water. Without them, this may lead to the rising sea level. Additionally, as the coral reefs die, coastlines become more prone to damage and flooding from storms, hurricanes, and cyclones. Extinction. Many endangered species are found in Tubataha, especially the coral reefs, and if the threats in them continues at its rate, coral reefs can be close to extinction in 30 to 50 years, as researchers said. For economic, coral reefs support commercial and subsistence fisheries as well as job and businesses through tourism and recreation. Tubataha is a tourist spot that provides income to locals. In fact, coral reef fisheries provide livelihood for more than a million of scale fishes.
Once these problems had been identified, there have been various conservation efforts in order to protect the beautiful marine biome. In 1993, UNESCO indicted the reef as a Natural World Heritage Site. In 1996, the Worldwide Fund and the Tubataha Management Office established practical systems to sustain part and conservation initiatives. Some of these solutions include restricting commercial practices, such as fishing in the area, as well as imposing stricter rules in terms of visiting the reef. In 2009, the RA 10067 or Tubataha Reefs Natural Act was signed, wherein it is the responsibility of the state to ensure the protection and conservation of the globally significant economic, biological, social, cultural, educational, and scientific values of the Tuataha Reefs into perpetuity for the enjoyment of present and future generations. Years of conservation efforts it did was not for nothing. In fact, we were considered by international bodies as model for conservation that other countries can follow suit. Our efforts were awarded with the silver medal by World Future Council in 2012. A recovery without evidence is just simply empty claims. In a comprehensive report by Stockwell in 2019, they compared the status of the marine biome from 2014 to 2019, looking into various factors such as the species and substrate density. For this presentation, we highlighted three key factors: species density, coral substrate cover, and sightings of previously rare aquatic animals. Stockwell noted that there is a higher fish density from 200 fish sightings per 500 square meters to a whopping 462 fish sightings per 500 square meters. This means that efforts against overfishing increase the fish population over the years. Corals are important because of their many functions in the marine biome. Threats such as coral bleaching may have decreased as the coral substrate cover increased from 2014's 32.6 to 43.8 in 2019. Animals such as tiger sharks, surgeonfish, some species of turtles, whales, and bumphead parrotfish who had decreased sightings over the years are seeing a resurgence in terms of numbers. So before we conclude, let us watch a video first about Tubataha by National Geographic. Tubataha Reef is more than a national treasure, but a priceless living area that has existed for a very long time. It is located at the heart of the Coral Triangle and home to thousands of diverse species, both marine and terrestrial. It is a conservation model due to the love and effort that our fellow Filipinos have put into it. Tubataha should not be the only example, but it should be replicated in other parts of the Philippines as well as the world. So that is our presentation and for further readings, this is our references. We hope that you have a great day and thank